So a couple of weeks ago, I was with my sister, and she looked at me across the table and said, "Mark, don't you ever get lonely?" And I just sat there for a second because I know what people call it online, retirement loneliness. And I've seen men search for things like no friends in retirement. Like they're trying to figure out if something's wrong with them. My sister wasn't being cruel. She wasn't trying to pick a fight. She was genuinely worried. And I almost did what I normally do and just say, "Oh, no, no, I'm fine," and change the subject. But something stopped me because I realized, as kind as she meant it, she wasn't asking sure she was asking the wrong question. The question wasn't really, "Are you lonely?" It was, "Why don't you seem to need what everyone else seems to need?" And that's a different conversation. So now, just to be clear, about my life, I'm not alone. I've got a wife, I've got a family I'm close with. But even with that, since I retired, I've noticed how quickly people get nervous when a man's life gets quiet. There's this picture in people's heads of a healthy retirement, a full social calendar, a buddy on Saturdays, a, you know, group for golf or coffee or something. And if you don't have that, people start to worry. And I get it. Male loneliness is real, and I'm not here to pretend it isn't. What I want to do is talk about something those conversations often miss. What it feels like when solitude isn't a problem, it's a preference, and why that distinction matters. So here's the story that seems to be going around right now. If you don't have a big social circle, you're in trouble. And some of that is true in some cases. Loneliness, can hollow a man out. I'm not arguing that. Well, what I'm pushing back on is the assumption that quiet equals crisis. It shows up in little ways. A family member says, "Oh, you're getting out enough," or a friend asks, "Oh, you've got to stay social." Headline reads like a warning label: "Men who spend time alone are at risk." And I understand the concern. A lot of it comes from love, but underneath it is another message that a man is only okay if he's still performing a certain kind of life, busy, plugged in, surrounded. So when a retired man goes quieter, people label it like, "Oh, he must be lonely, he must be depressed. Oh, he's isolating." And sometimes they're right, but oftentimes they're not. But if we panic every time a man prefers quiet and solitude, we end up shaming peace, and we lose the ability to tell the difference between peace and trouble. So let me put this square in the middle of the table here. Not every quiet man is lonely. And on the flip side, not every man who says he's fine is actually fine. The hard part is learning to tell the difference. So for me, this wasn't some dramatic moment. It was ordinary. It happened in stages. When I first retired, it didn't start with sitting on a porch with a cup of coffee. It started with a 1 year contract in the Middle East. And that's where something shifted. I had spent 40 years in a work world where I'd see the same people week after week. You share routines, you share history, you share the same hallways, and then suddenly I'm halfway around the world and all that falls away. The people that were around me over there were fine, but they weren't my people. They were acquaintances, the kind you work together with, and afterwards everyone goes back to their own life. So without any big fanfare, I fell out of regular contact with the coworkers I'd known for 40 years. And then at the end of my contract, I came home, and the part that surprised me, I wasn't panicking, I wasn't scrambling, I was relieved. Obviously relieved to be back on familiar ground, back home in my own chair. But my wife was still working full time, and for a while I really embraced the solitude of being home during the day. And then not too long after that, COVID hit with the lockdown. Now quiet wasn't just my preference, it was the whole world. And honestly, the first part of that felt like permission. I got right into that. World finally stopped demanding that I be out and about all the time. But then, the little guilt creeps in because a voice in the background that says, oh, a good man has a group, a healthy man should stay social. If you don't have that, something wrong, and I remember thinking, well, why don't I miss it more? I'm not really bothered by it. And then the next chapter that showed up was babysitting. And grandkids started coming along, and I started babysitting several days a week. So suddenly my days weren't empty. They were full, little footsteps, little questions, snacks, little emergencies. Not a friend group or a social group, something else, something much better. And that's where I learned a simple distinction that sounds simple, but it's not. Solitude and isolation are not the same thing. Solitude, for me, it steadies me. I come out of it clearer, kinder, and more present. Isolation shrinks me. I come out of it numb or edgy or, feeling a little ashamed that I'm not doing more. And I don't always know which one I'm in until I watch what it produces in me. If my quiet makes me more grateful, then that's solitude. If my quiet makes me smaller, anxious, then that's isolation. And sometimes I've told myself I'm fine when what I really meant was I don't want to deal with people right now, or I'm tired, or I don't want to be seen. So when I say I'm not lonely, I'm not trying to sound tough. I'm saying there's a kind of quiet that heals me, and there's a kind of quiet that can be a little bit of a warning. And the word I've been using for the healthy kind, maybe the honest word, is selective. Not proud, not superior, just selective. You know, for decades, we did a lot of forced social interaction, mandatory small talk, work relations where you're, friendly, but, careful in a way. Conversations that cost energy we didn't always have. And then retirement comes, and for the first time in your adult life, you get to be selective. You get to choose who drains you that you don't really want to be around. You get to choose who strengthens you that you prefer to spend a little time with. You get to choose whether you want noise or whether you want quiet. And if you're an introverted man, that quiet can feel like oxygen. So the reframe is kind of simple. Sometimes what looks like withdrawal is actually a man finally living honestly. And sometimes what looks like loneliness is actually peace. And so here's the nuance. Selective doesn't mean you never need anyone. Doesn't mean you cut everybody off. It doesn't mean you're above friendship. It just means you're done pretending that every social thing is good for you. So if your phone is quiet and your heart is steady, there's probably nothing wrong with you. And if you don't have a close group of friends you socialize with all the time, you're not unraveling on inside. You're not broken. You might just be done performing for somebody else's expectations. And if you're watching this now and quiet feels heavy, you feel unseen, you know, please hear me. You matter and you don't have to carry that by yourself. Because the goal isn't to force ourselves into a loud life that doesn't fit. The goal is an honest life, quiet when it's peaceful and connected where it truly matters. That's really all I wanted to say. So take good care of yourself, and we'll see you in the next one.